Okay, controversy. Definitely something that we deal with as librarians. School librarians versus public librarians will have slightly different policies in place. Some of that has to do with budget. School librarians tend to have a smaller budget, so their purchasing decisions are really weighted, and that age appropriateness is something that comes into consideration a little more often. Of course, they also serve very young to older kids, all in the same space, so I have a separate teen collection that gives me a lot more leeway with being able to have materials because the room is clearly intended for a teenage audience and it's advertised on the door, so if a 5-year-old comes in and picks up Sandman, well, nobody can say that I didn't warn you. But the important thing is that we have, hopefully, libraries everywhere would have a policy, a written down policy about how they would deal with an objection to a book, a challenge to a book. And I would say, for starters, get everyone on board talking about it and make sure that everyone's comfortable and in the same place with it, and then have something written down that you can refer to. It really helps when you have, if you come into that situation, to know that there's something written down and that the people that you work with are going to back you up on it. I would also advise having a script that if you feel really uncomfortable, not sure what to say, make a little script. It sounds really corny. Rehearse it with a colleague. Even if you come off a little mechanical in a situation where you're talking to somebody, having some words to fall back on, especially if you're dealing with somebody who's feeling emotional about a topic, it can really ground you and not make you feel personally attacked and at a loss at how to respond to a situation like that. In the few situations where I have had to talk to a parent, I always thank them for coming to me to talk about this, listen, repeat back what you're hearing to make it really clear that you're listening. I understand that what you're telling me is XYZ. And I like to tell parents, I'm really glad you're involved with your kid's reading life, and you as their parent have every right to make decisions about what you want them to read, what you think is appropriate for them. I hope you talk to your kid about why you make these choices, and I hope you understand that we as librarians don't stand in for you as a parent, and we wouldn't make decisions about what your kid can and cannot read, and you wouldn't want to have somebody else making decisions about, other parents making decisions about what your kid can read, so therefore you understand why we can't make a blanket decision for all kids, not just your kid, when it comes to taking materials off the shelf. So. If you think the book has got something to it that is going to reach kids or connect with kids, the content, I think, if you're feeling uncomfortable about it, I book talked The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian to 7th and 8th graders. And the 7th graders, some people might think that's a little bit on the young side for the book, but I felt like the text was going to be accessible, the story was going to be something they were going to be engaged in, and there was language and there were situations, and I told the kids beforehand, I was like, look, I'm not going to lie, there's some F-bombs in here and some other content, but I think when you read the book, you're going to find that the author isn't doing this for gratuitous reasons. He chose these things for these specific words, these specific things to talk about for a real reason, and think about that when you're reading it. I think, too, a lot of people worry about kids picking up a book and getting exposed to something that's going to just, freak them out. Kids are really good at knowing when they're not ready for something a lot of the time, I think. Or if they don't understand it, they may even be bored and they'll put the book down and wait to read it later when they feel more ready. I'm not saying that, just leaving everything lying around, don't worry about it. I mean, it's nice to think about these things. It's nice to pre-read stuff if you have the opportunity to, but